Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it, midweek edition. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and we are ready to go. Thoughts from Coach Frost, thoughts from the Moose. The eve of the NFL Draft, we are loaded up. Come on and join us, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865 numbers to get in. Follow us, find us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio, at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbel, and email Chris at HailVarsity.com. I feel a ton better now than I did earlier. I got the second round of the needle, not that you care. It's a different needle than what my wife wants to give me. And it feels like Elijah and Damon both held me down and took turns with a metal pipe just swinging away in my gorgeous left imagined bicep.
Is it that bad?
Dude, the worst part.
The thing is, I've heard some people say, "Oh, I felt fine. I was out doing this and this. I went for a bike ride that." And I think other people saying, "Like, yeah, I was laying in bed for 24 straight hours."
Pretty much pissy all day.
Okay,
all right, more so than normal. My buddy, dear friend Jeff, the pharmacist, the avid Denver fan. I get a kick out of him because when he calls my name, he's a huge Yankee fan too. So he'll go Christopher Garcia Parra or Pedro, or that's what he called me to go get my first shot and then my second shot. You know, being the Red Sox fan. So he was piling on, you know, the implication. He's giving me the needle. He said Garcia Parra. He said Pedro. So it was time to get my shot. So, yeah, my left arm just, it hurts. But boo-hoo for me. We'll dive into plenty of post-practice thoughts. Scott Frost talked today. Some thoughts on that. The news on Thomas Fidone. This sucks for an amazing young talent with a knee injury, a non-contact knee injury. So we'll share some thoughts on that here in a moment. Hear from Scott Frost. Interesting takes on the running backs in a good way from Ryan Held. We'll get into Mike Babcock will join us in about 20 minutes. Get Babber's thoughts on some Husker football and Husker baseball. Mike Shuey with us at 4:40. And then some NFL draft preview, part of ESPN Radio's draft coverage, Ian Fitzsimmons. So a nice sit down with Ian in 1 hour. His take on the draft and where the draft really starts and his thoughts on the quarterbacks. Yay or nay? Are you happy that Denver got Teddy Bridgewater?
For the price, yes.
Right, because you're only paying $3 million of the $10 million.
Yeah, and you're only giving away a 6th-round pick, which 6th-round picks, they've been known to be good, Tom Brady. But for the most part, 6th-round picks aren't going to make or break a franchise. So with that in mind, I think Teddy Bridgewater's a great insurance backup plan to have in case Drew Lock starts off the year throwing 1 touchdown and 4 picks in game 1.
Guy's 8-10 as a career starter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's nice insurance to have. I don't think Teddy Bridgewater's going to walk in and be the day 1 starting quarterback. I think that's still going to go to Drew Lock.
You can sure as heck pull Lock, though, and put Teddy in. You've seen him be pretty good in relief, and he started out okay in Carolina, and then McCaffrey went down, and good luck doing anything with that offense without McCaffrey.
Yeah, but what it tells me is that the Broncos aren't looking to trade up for a quarterback in the draft, which thank God they're not, because I don't like the idea of trading up into the top 5 for a quarterback because the amount of draft capital it's going to take to do that. And I think that also means that they don't think any of those top 4 or 5 quarterbacks are going to be falling down to the 9th overall pick.
I think you'll have a choice between whoever doesn't go 3, all right, between Lance and Fields and, of course, Mac Jones. And I think you're going to be able, if you're Denver, to get Lance or Fields.
To me, this deal tells me the Broncos think people are going to be trading up ahead of them to go get those guys.
And that may be the case because Detroit's not sold on staying at 7, and Carolina's not sold on staying at 8. Mm-hmm. So we'll see if New England, which is unlike that. We'll get into some draft thoughts and some college football. I mean, Ian Fitzsimmons has covered college football for a long time. You hear him with Freddie and Fitzsimmons weeknights on ESPN Radio. So it's good to talk with Ian Fitzsimmons. Open phones for you, a lot of hour 2, and then a Jock Doc to wrap us up. Here is Scott Frost confirming what a lot of us had heard, that there was an injury to Thomas Fidone last week. Here's the official word from the head man.
Thomas had a non-contact knee injury, just unfortunate play, just kind of a nothing play, and went down, and he's going to get surgery tomorrow. So we feel terrible for him, but he's in a good place and going to work to get back. Yeah, I think the best chance would be to get back toward the middle of the season and play some games down the stretch.
So you've got the 4-game red shirt rule. You have Fidone, and if we're talking timeline-wise later into the 2021 season, can do that math and talk ACL. And Fidone's such a gifted player, such a gifted athlete, that this just really hurts because of not only his talent level, but just how he was finishing up spring. We're not that far removed from Coach Becton talking about how, all right, he's got to learn, he's got to grind, he's got to get better as a young guy. And then just a day before this thing happened with Fidone, Becton was just kind of all over the guy in a good way about how much progress he had made.
He had his best practice so far as a Husker the day before. So
it's just freaky.
It's awful. It's unfortunate.
Voodoo doll-esque.
What do you make of this whole Scott Frost thinking he's going to be back for this? I think that's wishful thinking. I don't think he comes back next season at all.
Well, if he can come back and at least suit up, you don't have to play him. There's so much progress from a medical standpoint made with ACLs.
But it's not. He's not Adrian
necessary.
Peterson.
It's not. Well, it's not necessary. Well, you pray it's not necessary because Austin Allen's really good and Vokalek's really good, and those are your two guys.
Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, he would have been a third-string tight end this year, most likely. Now, he probably would have been the most played third-string tight end of anywhere in the country. Mm-hmm. But I don't think this is a huge loss. And I think just from looking at him, you could see him in the practice 2 weeks. So he looked like he had a little more filling out to do with his frame.
He's got to get a little bit bigger. You've got Hickman that's going to put some weight on in the offseason, back at tight end. So it'll be important for the Burke standout to kind of get reacquainted with that tight end room because you still have him as a body. You still have options, but the progress Fidone had made, it sounded like he would have been a guy that you wouldn't have been afraid to play, and he's a young, high-talent level guy. Let's go to the phones real quick. Chris is with us on Hail Varsity Radio. Chris, thanks for calling in. Go ahead.
Hey, Schmitty. I'm going to go silver lining with you here with Fidone. So
right.
I think this is actually going to be more of a benefit. Not that you ever want a kid to get hurt, but like you were just kind of talking about, this is going to allow himself to get in the weight room, work on some of his upper body strength. He's going to get in the playbook. He's going to be able to better submerge himself into the system. Speaking from somebody who's gone through 2 non-contact knees, this is going to work out. He's going to be just fine. This is going to work out to his benefit. And as far as him coming back, probably not no Dan Alexander, who's going to be back from an ACL in like 3.5 months. If you think back in the day, Dan tore his ACL in the spring game, and I'm pretty sure he was ready to go opening day of summer camp, if I remember correctly.
Dan Alexander was giving piggyback rides.
Yeah, the dude played the spring game with a torn ACL, and nobody knew. So it was like, yeah, what a freak of nature that guy
Nobody
was.
Could catch him.
Yeah.
245. He was nuts. He was great. Hey,
so,
go ahead.
Silver lining. I think he's going to be just fine. I think we're going to be better off for it. So.
Well, Chris, thanks for the phone call. And you saw Thomas Fidone's tweet. If you follow Thomas Fidone, but it's been retweeted, and he'll come back. He'll rehab, and he's got the right mentality to come back from it. It's a situation, and Mitch Sherman had a really nice write-up on Fidone's injury and what he'd been doing. He'd been doing some flexibility training to do some preventative work for said injury. So He's a pretty conscious kid, and it just sucks. It just sucks for him because not only is he a high flyer and high-level guy he got it, and he put the work in to match the talent that you're excited about, right? And to have it kind of go sideways like that right after you were turning the corner, that's the adversity you got to fight through.
Yeah, luckily, though, ACLs, knee injuries nowadays aren't the death blow to a career that they used to be, especially whenever you're a young, 18, 19-year-old. That's why I think he's getting the 6 month from Coach Frost. That would definitely be on the earlier end of ACLs. And the problem with ACLs now is not the issue of coming back. It's the issue of having a setback while you're coming back. That's the problem. I mean, look at Klay Thompson now. That's where this can become a career derailer, is whenever you have a knee injury and then you come back and boom, right on top of that, you tear again. That's the issue you got to have. So that's why I think just be patient with this. Let him come back next spring. I don't think we need to see him in the fall.
Well, agreed. Don't rush him back. The thing is with the ACLs as well, they do such a good job of treating you now that you feel good. You feel better, and you're ready to get out there, and maybe it's a little fool's gold with what your body is really ready for versus how you feel. Let's talk about Bill Moos, Nebraska's athletic director. The Moose had his monthly radio show on the network last night. How do you feel as a Nebraska fan when it comes to Bill Moos and 9 wins? 8 wins. Bill Moos talking about 8 or 9 wins. He's not throwing the gauntlet down. Scott better win 8 or 9 or else. No, that's not how it went last night. But the topic of expectations came up, and with Nebraska football, it'd be great to get into that 8, 9 wins to start getting back into the picture of conference championships and talking about more postseason. And I think in year 4 for Scott Frost, that's a realistic expectation. Now, Moose followed up with that understanding and realizing just how murderous the schedule is. All right. But listen, how do you take this as a Nebraska fan? What do you think of Bill Moose's comments? Are you going good? About time? 8, 9 wins? All right, Bill. Are you like, Bill, dude, shut up. The schedule is what it is, and 6 will be lucky? Or do you kind of nod your head quietly and say, yeah, it's about time Nebraska gets back to 8 or 9 wins? There's some of you that are like, yeah, aim high. Shoot for the moon. Bill Moos has kind of had a good pulse on where he thinks the team is at, because he was the guy that said be lucky to get to 6 in year 1, kind of echoed that in year 2. Who the hell knows what we were to expect last year, but he is 1,000% nails. Bill Moos is on defending the home field.
I'd go as far as to say sometimes Bill Moos has a better pulse for how good this football team is than the coaching staff, based on what we're hearing from the coaching staff at press conferences.
You've had a humbled coaching staff this year, and they're not really shooting their mouth off, and I'm not saying everybody on the coaching staff has shot their mouth off, no, but there was a lot of swag early on. You've had to reassess, and actions are way more valuable than words. Bill Moos is 1,000% right with winning at Memorial Stadium. Scott Frost is 8 and 9 in Lincoln at home. And year 1's year 1. But to be frank with you, you go 1 and 2 last year. You beat Penn State, but you get blown out by Illinois and you lose to an undermanned Minnesota team. That doesn't make sense. 2019, your losses at home, Ohio State, Indiana, Wisconsin, and Iowa. All right, some of those were close, some of those weren't. And then in 2018, you lost to Colorado, you lost to Troy, you lost to Purdue at home. You were actually 4 and 3 in year 1. You were 3 and 4 in year 2, and you were 1 and 2 last year. Nebraska needs to win at home, and that's easier said than done because there's not really a fear factor anymore coming into Memorial Stadium, because it's been about 10 years for teams rolling in and people leaving Lincoln without a win. I think you've gone undefeated at home once or twice in the last 10 years. So it all starts with protecting your own backyard. You're going to get Michigan, you're going to get Ohio State, you're going to get Wisconsin, and you're going to get Northwestern, and you're going to get Iowa in Lincoln. It's an awesome home schedule. I don't expect Nebraska to go undefeated. I don't. But it better be a 3-point loss. You better play your ass off. It's okay to lose to a more talented team. And there are some teams on Nebraska's schedule that just flat out are better on paper and on the field right now, talent-wise. But you have better depth. You have a lot more starters back defensively. You have 9. You've got an experienced quarterback. We'll hear from Coach Frost on the offense and Snacks Daniels on kind of where the offensive line is at. You've got a more physical offensive line, you feel like. So there's all these elements to kind of go into. Well, if things break right, 8 or 9. Here's my biggest worry. I don't worry about the talent in a lot of the games. I worry about the coaching. I worry about the decision-making. I worry about the play calling. I worry about the personnel. I just do. Settle into a groove, do what you're going to do, and do it well, and don't make so many freaking mistakes, right? That's what I worry about. Can they be better from a mistake standpoint, special teams and an offense? I think so. All right, they've tried to go fundamental heavy. Great. But when push comes to shove, can you be a difference maker as a play caller, as a head coach, as a game planner on Saturdays than your Big Ten counterparts? That's the question, and you're growing into that, but you're already in year 4 now.
I just want teams to have to work their ass off to beat the Huskers, especially at home. You saw that Iowa 2 years ago, Indiana 2 years ago had to work their ass off to beat Nebraska and Lincoln. Illinois, Minnesota last year did not. It's as simple as that. Nebraska came out and played terrible, terrible games against those teams.
We'll check in with Mike Babcock next. It's Hail Varsity presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And we're back
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio listen?
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Thanks for spending time. NFL Draft Thoughts, Ian Fitzsimmons, college football and NFL insider. A little bit after 5, Open Phones, Hour 2. We say hi to Hall of Famer, historian, and author with HailVarsity.com and magazine, Mike Babcock, with us at MD Babs on Twitter. Babbers, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing okay. How about you?
We are good. Are you going to get the old sunscreen out and go tank topping on Saturday?
Yeah, well, no, probably not to that degree, but plan to go to the game anyway.
I think it's gun show time, Babbers. I think you go. I'm kidding. You sit out in the west balcony and enjoy the sunshine. You know what, though? I mean, there's going to be fans in the stands. It's going to be a fun atmosphere, a little bit different format where it's not really tackled to the ground till the second half. But overall, your level of anticipation, what are you excited about for Saturday?
Well, I think, it's always interesting, like we always talk, Smitty. The spring is a time for optimism, and so, the second half we'll see young players, and there's just a lot of excitement with the young players. I mean, this is kind of a stunner that Fidone is out because he was obviously the head of that recruiting class, but there's a lot of interest, I think, in the young guys and how they perform in the spring game.
A lot of eyes will be on the quarterbacks back up to Adrian. You've got Smothers, and you have Harburg, and you've got Matt Masker. So those are 3 to watch, and I think there'll be extensive work by some of the young pups in that second half. I'm hoping to see that anyway, and kind of let it fly. It sounds like Nebraska's pretty pleased with some of the progress made by those young quarterbacks.
Yeah, it seems that way. But again, as we always talk too, it depends on the line. It depends on establishing some sort of a running game, and no Ramir Johnson, no Marquise Stepp. That's going to be an interesting position to see who's actually doing something.
No kidding.
It's just been confusing to look at that in the spring, the running back position. Because if somebody asks you, okay, when you get to the fall and Nebraska opens up against Illinois in Champaign-Urbana, who's going to be the running back? How do you answer that?
We can't.
No, I don't think you can. I mean, I think that's one of the things that it'll be interesting to see again in the spring game. Who does what, and how that might carry over into the fall.
What's your take on just how physical this spring has been? Coach Frost hit on that about how they've really amped up and ramped up the physicality. because you didn't have a spring last year. So it was really time to go heavy this spring to make up for some lost time, because you're gonna feel that physicality on Saturdays.
Yeah, well, I think that's probably a reflection of his own experience. You know, that was one of the things that Tom Osborne always did, was physical. You know, and Osborne did a lot of ones against one kind of stuff, but physicality was really an important thing in practice, because you know, when you get in a game, then it's not quite as there's not a big difference. Mm-hmm. Although, you know, there's been discussions. I guess the NCAA is thinking about reducing the number of padded practices in the spring to significantly, it sounds like.
Yeah. I was just going to say, Mike, it's an article from Sports Illustrated last week says that they're considering reducing full padded practices from 21 to 8 and the complete abolishment of any collision exercise such as the Oklahoma drill. That just seems like a complete change to college football.
You can't do it.
And do you think that's why Scott Frost is going so physical this spring, just in case that they do lower down how many actual full padded practices he can have in the fall? Might as well just get him in now?
Well, yeah, it's interesting to consider, but you know, it's like if they do make that change, every program has to deal with it. So you know, coaches are paid well, and they're smart enough to figure out, you know, if that's the rule change, then that's the way we'll adjust. This is what we'll do. But, you know, maybe so. Maybe you're going to get the last, presumably. You know, I don't know if that's going to happen or not, probably. But, yeah, you want to get some physicality in there. I think that's true. But, again, put it in context. Everybody's would have to do it if becomes the rule. So you adjust.
Mike Babcock's with us, HailVarsity.com and magazine at MD Babs on Twitter. Mike, what's your takeaway from Bill Moose's comments last night on the Bill Moose show from a expectation? How realistic are 8 or 9 wins next season when you look at the schedule? Bill laid out some points of emphasis, specifically, yes, the schedule's difficult. Yes, the home field needs to be back to the home field that Memorial Stadium traditionally is known for. And you haven't fared well against teams that you're, air quote, supposed to beat. That's my air quote. And, you know, what do you read into it, or do you read into it at all?
Well, I was a little bit surprised because that wouldn't be my prediction, but I'm not too smart on that stuff anyway. But, you know, it's difficult. The 3 of your first 4 games are on the road, and I know, you know, a couple of those looks like you're probably you got a shot to win those games. Maybe Oklahoma's the one that sticks out there that is probably going to be a problem. And then after that, you know, you're pretty much the only 2 road games you got left, although they're no small task, is going to Minnesota and going to Wisconsin. So the schedule is backloaded with home games, and if you get into that, you know, what he's talking about, being successful at Memorial Stadium, getting the job done, maybe it's possible, but it just seems to me like that's a pretty difficult schedule. We've seen things that have come out and ranked, you know, where Nebraska's schedule is. It's a tough go. So if Nebraska can do that, that's a great turnaround. I think that you would be reasonably happy if you went 7-5, or, you know, something like that, 500 even, after where you've been. So, but you know, he's probably smarter than I am, and it certainly is good to have the athletic director believing in what you're going to do.
I think you can talk yourself into 8 or 9 if X, Y, and Z happen because of what you have back defensively, because of what you have at quarterback, assuming your offensive line makes a jump, and back to the running back discussion point, you find a couple backs that can do the work, and the talent you have at wide receiver. Now, to me, I think the biggest problem has been mistakes and the fundamental side of things between turnovers and penalties. That's hurt Nebraska. Special teams obviously has hurt Nebraska. And just some management stuff, too, has been an issue. And I don't think it's wrong for Bill Moose to say, you know, in year 4, some of those things should be cleaned up and be much better. If that's the case, then you can tack on a couple more wins.
Yeah, you make a good point there, Smitty. I mean, management is something you can control. I mean, that part of it, you can control the penalties and the turnovers. It's something that you can focus on, and you can handle that part of it. So if you control the things that you can control, maybe that's realistic. Maybe you can accomplish that. But so far, Nebraska hasn't shown that it's been able to control the things that it can control. And as a result, we see what's happened.
Babber's going to go to baseball here. Get your thoughts on Nebraska jumping into 3 of the polls. You have Kendall Rogers listing Nebraska as now a regional site as one of the 16 national seeds. What was Will Bolt's takeaway today? As I know, baseball met with the media as well.
Yeah. His message was the same as it's been throughout the season. Keep your nose to the grindstone and one day at a time, one practice at a time, one game at a time, one inning at a time, one pitch at a time. I mean, from again, when we talk to the players on these Zoom conferences, you get the sense that they've bought in. That's their attitude. Today it was Cam Wynn that was available, and that's one of the things he said is, it's not our goal to get in the top 25. Our goal is greater than that. That we want to be in contention for a national championship. I don't know that that's going to happen, but certainly it's a step in the right direction. If Nebraska could win the Big Ten and get an NCAA regional and have some success there, I think that would be a very positive step in the right direction. And only the second season under Will Bolt, the first season of which was limited to 15 games. And so I think that there's just a lot of positive things that have come out of it. And like we talked about with football, manage the things that you can manage, take care of those. And if you do, then good things can happen.
Mike, do you know off the top of your head, when was the last time Nebraska baseball hosted a regional? Because I can remember in my lifetime.
It was 08.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember
2008.
younger. Sometime when I was younger, I remember the Huskers hosting a regional and then losing that regional. I want to say they went 0-2 in that regional, if I remember correctly. But
that was a loaded team, Babbers.
I think they won. I think they won one. I think they lost. I think my recollection not that good either, but it seemed to me like they might have gone 1 and 2. But yeah, man, the energy at the stadium and the number. I think that tournament they had a game that's where they had the record crowd. I think 8,700 or something like that. But just a lot of energy, and it's exciting, And that's the thing that Nebraska fans hadn't had that until Dave Van Horn got things going there with a couple trips to the College World Series, and that's a good thing. If Nebraska can have an opportunity to play host to a regional, that would be a really a positive step, a step in the right direction.
Mike Babcock's with us. Babbers, what are you working on here for the rest of this week with Hale Varsity?
Well, we're already planning for the yearbook, and so there are some things that we're working on related to the yearbook, and then we've also got a May issue that's going to come out, and there's a little bit of a baseball emphasis there, a baseball Q&A, a baseball legends, some stuff like that. So it's really like kind of trying to be focused because you're basically working on 2 issues of the magazine in the next month.
Can't wait for it. Loved the recent issue with Kate Smith on the cover. That was fantastic.
That was great, wasn't it?
Oh, it was so good. Really well done by Aaron Sorensen, and wonderful work by you and Jacob and Vogues and the crew. Of course, Jacob, just awesome work with Hale Varsity Magazine and .com. Babbers, we will see you on Saturday, bud. Thanks for, as always, taking some time and talking some ball with us.
Hey, thanks for having me involved. Be safe.
All right, you too. There he is. Hall of Famer, historian, author Mike Babcock with Hale Varsity. We'll check in with Mike Schuhart. Shuey's on the way. Ian Fitzsimmons, some college football NFL draft thoughts next hour.
And now,
back to Hale Varsity Radio.
Good stuff from Mike Babcock. Ian Fitzsimmons on the way. We will give you a cue to call coming up before the 5 o'clock hour, and also in the 5 o'clock hour for the ESPN Memorial Day kickoff. Elijah will play the sounder that sounds like my wife throwing a plugged-in toaster to a bathtub I'm in, but it's really supposed to be a grill with meat grilling beautifully on it and birds chirping. What you can qualify for, we'll give it away May 20th, is a Weber Spirit E210 gas grill from Capitol Patio and the Flame Shop, a $100 gift card to Campbell's Nursery and Garden Center, and also a $100 gift card to Leon's Gourmet Grocer. So all of that up for grabs for you. Qualify ESPNLincoln.com or be caller 9. So we will effort Shuey here in a moment to see if we can't get in contact here with Mike Schuart, Wilderness Ridge Golf. And Shuey's got it all going, man. All right. I'll text him. Let's hear from Scott Frost real quick, specifically on those young quarterbacks here, because, well, the young guys have made quite a jump, quite a move. Here's Coach Frost on those young pups taking the snaps.
Steady improvement is how I would characterize it. You know, Matt Masker continues to do good things. Logan Smothers just every single day got better, and his control and command of the offense is improving and getting to a point where I feel great with him. Harburg is really talented kid that can run and throw. He was swimming a little bit at first, but he's hungry to learn, and he's really improved throughout spring. So Mario's done a good job with that room, and those guys made a lot of progress. Still have a ways to go, but have made a ton of progress this spring.
So that's encouraging. Just kind of watching the quarterbacks work, at least during the open practice. You love the physical stature of a Harburg. You're wondering, okay, if he can use his legs. You see where Smothers is an equalizer. And then Matt Masker just kind of gets the job done. And those are your options behind Adrian. And honestly, you're going to have to break in case of emergency and probably get some use out of a if history tells us anything, you're going to have to get some snaps, maybe a quarter, maybe a game, maybe several games out of your backup quarterback, unless this year 4 is different than past years for Adrian. And he looks so fast and agile right now, along with more pop to his arm, that, man, you're starting out with a full tank right now. Sky's the limit for what your quarterback can do. We welcome in Mike Schuart, Wilderness Ridge Golf, and can find Shuey out at Wilderness Ridge. Shuey, we're fired up for the spring game, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. A few days away.
I know, man.
Exciting.
Are you taking the red or the white?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't even thought about it. Gotta take the red.
No, you got to take the red. It's going to be interesting here, this format here, and you're a sports guy. You love Nebraska football. We'll kind of go there with the quarterbacks here, and all right, doesn't sound like Nebraska's going to go portal shopping. Good call or not so fast, my friend, to coin the Sunshine Scooter here. What would Shuey do as coach?
I would have to go portal for a quarterback.
Just because of the uncertainty?
You only one play away from Martinez going down, then what?
Right. You got young guys.
Yeah, super unproven guys. No, I'd rather have somebody back there that had a little seasoning to them.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you really don't know who or how many running backs you can lean on. Maybe you feel good about the O-line, but say you got to have your backup quarterback come in and don't fumble the ball, son, and hand it off, right? Isn't that the instructions?
Yeah, but you got to have somebody hand it off to.
Exactly.
I mean, who's your running back?
No.
So you got your backup quarterback situation, and your running back situation is very suspect.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got sounds like good wideouts, great tight ends, but man, your quarterback's got to be able to get it to them.
Yeah. Well, there's been some improvement by your young guys. We just heard Coach Frost talk about that. That's great that there's improvement. That's great that there's maybe a little cleaner throwing motion going on from a guy like Smothers. But, we'll see, and we'll make obvious knee-jerk reactions after Saturday with what we see. Shuey, I want to get your take on Kate Smith, man. She was scorching over the weekend. What are your thoughts on her performance?
Fantastic to watch and see. I was coaching when Kate came in as a freshman, and she had a whole lot of talent then, and it's just really nice to see and fun to see as she matured and as she seasoned herself to be able to play to her full potential. So it's like that round she played, the last round of Big Tens, was quite a round. I mean, that's it. People don't realize how good that was. I mean, that was an incredible round of golf, but that's what she was capable of. It was just great to see her be able to get it done.
Shuey, as being a part of Nebraska golf as long as you were, and you look at Kate's game, and you're able to recruit that and project that and see it pay off. Tell me a little bit about that maturation process for an athlete, for a golfer at the college level. We talk a lot about football or hoops or baseball. How and when's a young guy or gal ready? Kind of translated over to golf for us. What parts of a game need to sharpen here as you further your career in golf?
Well, the first thing is you got to get through that first being away from home type of syndrome. Mm-hmm. So when they're away from home and now they're a little fish in a big pond instead of being the big fish in the little pond. So, and they get lonely, they get homesick, this and that. So if they can get through that, then they're okay. And then it's just a different level because you're playing on bigger golf courses, tougher golf courses, set up more difficult events against much better competition. So then you have to go through that kind of doubting phase. Am I good enough? Because you're playing against some really, really good players out there. And you as a freshman or even a sophomore, you're still playing against seniors. So you got to get through the confidence phase and kind of go, I can do this, I can do this. And then they got to get stronger, because the game is a much more powerful game. And especially at that level, if you have enough power to hit some of the shots that you're going to be faced with, a lot of the girls just don't have the power. If they get the rough long, having to hit shots out of the rough to greens that are elevated, that are really hard. They can't hit the ball hard enough to be able to control the ball, to be able to keep it in position. So it's like, as they go through their workout processes, they get bigger and stronger, and their technique gets better and learning how to hit those shots, and just experience. I mean, I believe the fifth year for Kate was a huge year because that helped her really mature. And she, with her play and what she had been doing the whole time, she was good enough to play with the best players, in the country. And that fifth year, she finally got to believe that, do that. She was fully mature in how she played. She was a very mature golfer anyway, a very smart golfer. But that experience really, really helped a lot, and she kind of, like I said, I mean, she was able to play to her full potential, what I saw when she came here.
Shuey, hang on. We're up against a hard break. I want to give you a couple more minutes on the other side, okay?
You got it.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time this hour, Hail Varsity Radio. Mike Schuart, Wilderness Ridge with us. Shuey, thanks for your assessment and take on Kate Smith's growth and development, and what a performance by her. Shuey, real quick, bud, what's coming up for you this week at Wilderness, and how can folks get that membership locked in and enjoy some great golf, some wonderful food and drink, and the mother of all aquatic centers here around the corner?
It's coming. They're out there doing some demo work right now, so each day gets a little closer. So they're tearing up a whole bunch of concrete and getting ready to pour new concrete. And then probably here in the next couple of weeks, you'll start seeing a lot of work headed towards the pool.
That's awesome.
So getting that graded, yeah, so it's super exciting. The building's coming along. It's going to be incredible. So get through the little bit of the demo pain to get a lot of the gain in the end. So it's going to be fantastic. I'm super excited.
What are your fits looking like here at Wilderness?
We have Friday, we have Mizuno in. So if you are interested in Mizuno, we'll have the Mizuno tech rep in. We can do fittings with Mizuno on Friday, and then the following Friday we're going to do a in-house fitting. So we'll have all of our products that we'll have out there and be available for people to try and get fit for a new set of sticks if they're looking for those.
Well, go see Shuey. He's going to help you tee off better and make them putts for some dough. Shuey, we appreciate you, brother. Right. We'll talk some spring ball and some more golf next week, okay?
I can't wait. It's going to be exciting.
All right, buddy. Take care. Love catching up with Mike Schuart, Wilderness Ridge Golf on Hail Varsity Radio. So we are loaded up next hour. We'll spend plenty of time here. We'll hear from Ryan Held on the running backs, which is going to be so important, not only for Nebraska in the fall, but let's sort through who can maybe gain some confidence and beyond the field this Saturday and beyond for some stability in the run game. I think the O-line's going to be all right. Need to help the quarterback out. And can you find that next running back? Reminder to buckle up. 70% of people in fatal crashes in Nebraska not wearing a seatbelt. If used properly, a seatbelt can reduce the risk of fatal injury up to 60%. Your best defense in any crash. Buckling up, brought to you by the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. Again, that's meat hitting a grill. That's your cue to call for the ESPN Memorial Day kickoff. Caller 9 right now qualifies for the Weber Spirit E210 gas grill from your friends at Capitol Patio and the Flame Shop. They're also throwing in a Weber brush and Capitol Patio rub. Caller 9-466-3776 or 800-825-5865. You also qualify for a $100 gift card to Campbell's Nursery and Garden Center to kind of spruce up that backyard next to your new grill. And we can't forget the meat. The $100 gift card to Leon's Gourmet Grocer. That is the trifecta: a grill, a gift card to Campbell's Nursery and Garden Center, a gift card to Leon's Gourmet Grocer, all part of ESPN Memorial Day kickoff. Caller number 9 qualifies now. 466-3776, 466-3776. Caller 9 qualifies, and 800-825-5865. Can also log on ESPNLincoln.com. Get your name in the hopper that way. Drawing May 20th. Get qualified for that Memorial Day kickoff with ESPN. Draft insider, expert in college football guru, Ian Fitzsimmons, next on Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Back into it at Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. NFL Draft gets going, and part of the radio coverage, Ian Fitzsimmons with us. You hear him on Freddie and Fitzsimmons, weeknights on ESPN Lincoln. And Ian, nice to spend some time with you. How's your prep been this week?
I'm ready for this thing to be over. It's not this week. It kind of goes on all year, but man, this is a different one. It's kind of like what New Orleans Saints GM Mickey Loomis said yesterday. And I completely agree with him. This has been one of the stranger years in trying to evaluate all these prospects because you weren't able to be around them nearly as much. I mean, normally I'll work, the better part of 25, college games and maybe 7 or 8 NFL games as well. And I did 11 college games last year. That's it, due to COVID, because we all traveled just regionally, instead of flying to Bama, or Ohio State for, Ohio State, Michigan, or, out to Autzen at Oregon, or, coming there to see Big Red. I mean, it's, it was all regional games for me. Well, and you had to drive. They wouldn't let us fly for the most part. So it's been hard for these teams to evaluate a lot of these players. And let's go back to that scene at the Senior Bowl. You had, everyone, GMs, head coaches, scouts wearing masks on one side of a partition, talking to prospects on the other, right, also wearing a mask. And they'll ask, these kind of psychological eval questions to try and see if players, just to maybe a question that might either get a smirk, right, or a laugh or a smile, and you couldn't tell those little things, and that goes a long way in defining what kind of person you're drafting as well. And the film don't lie, man. I mean, what kind of player you're getting. That you also want to see what kind of player you're bringing into your locker room and into your community. So it's been different, man. It's been a completely, just unique journey getting ready for what's going to happen coming up on Thursday night, starting on Thursday night.
Ian Fitzsimmons with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. This draft, the headline is the quarterback crop. And Ian, as long as you've looked and covered the NFL and covered college football, does this crop of quarterbacks remind you at all of any previous draft or previous crops?
Well, when you look at the history of the NFL, there's only been 2 other times where you've had quarterbacks taken at 1, 2, 3. And I'm going off the top of my head here. It was Plunkett, Pastorini, Manning, right? And then you had, oh my gosh, now I'm losing the second one. It was the quarterback Achilles Smith and the other 2. Now I'm having a brain fart, but it's only happened twice in NFL history. We've had quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3. Now in that second right wave, none of them panned out. Tim Couch was one of those other guys as well. So those guys that didn't exactly have a banner career in the NFL. This group, man, with the college game making its way so much over the last 4 or 5 years into the NFL game, where hardly any of it's under center now. It's all catch and throw, read and react, schemes that we've seen so much go from actually 7-on-7 to college, now to the National Football League. Every one of these guys can tote it. I mean, and as far as throwing it, Mac is probably the one that can't tote it like the rest of them. But of all of the top 5, because there's 2 different groups. There's that 5 that we all talk about, right? Mm-hmm. Trevor and Justin Fields and Zach Wilson, Trey Lance and Mac Jones. Then there's a drop-off to the Kyle Trask, Davis Mills out of Stanford, and then Kellen Mond out of Texas A&M. So those are the 2, different tiers. And talking to every, scout and GM that I have over the last month and a half. The one that I don't get, and I'm not as high on, is Zach Wilson. I mean, maybe it's because I've only seen him in person once. And that was back in 2019, and he was not good. But statistically, and you turned the tape on last year, and he was a different guy. He really worked hard in the offseason to become a much more accurate and more complete player. But you put his tape up against Fields or Mac Jones or Trey Lance, and I'm sorry, I'm taking Fields or Lance or Mac Jones over Zach Wilson. He's the one that I circle as far as those 5 of the one that I'm going, man, I'm not seeing what the Jets are seeing. That's the one that I kind of scratch my head at.
Ian Fitzsimmons with us, ESPN Radio, part of the NFL Draft, and Freddie and Fitzsimmons on ESPN. I'm curious here because we all expect Lawrence to go number 1. And you've got Wilson slated in the second spot.
Hold on, Chris. He is going 1. It's done.
Okay.
Man, that's over. The draft starts at 4.
Breaking news. Breaking news.
The draft begins at number 4 because we're having 3 quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3.
So tell me who that third is. What do you think the Niners do?
I think it was Mac Jones from the beginning in Kyle Shanahan's vision, because Mac Jones reminds him a lot of Matt Ryan, a very cerebral quarterback that is remarkably accurate. He's the most accurate of the 5, in my opinion, even more so than Trevor Lawrence. He's just not as athletic as Lawrence or the other guys, but for that matter, any one of them. But he is remarkably accurate, and you talk about picking up an offense quickly. Go back and watch the Senior Bowl. And the way, I wish somebody would stare at me, including my wife, the way Matt Rule would look at the head coach of the Carolina Panthers, the way he would look at Mac Jones. And you talk to those Carolina coaches, Mac Jones had their playbook damn near down about day 3. Now, that's remarkable. Making checks at the line of scrimmage off their playbook without having to ask a question. And you watch players gravitate to him. So I think Kyle Shanahan, because of how much he reminds him of a quarterback he's coached to a Super Bowl in the past, and Matt Ryan, that's his guy. I think there are other people in the building that are going, hey, what about Lance? What about Fields? But when it all comes down on Thursday night, I think it's going to be Mac Jones going to San Francisco, and then the draft begins at 4. And I think Kyle Pitts would be the target for Atlanta.
You put Pitts in that offense with the receiving core Atlanta has, and you still got Matty Ice that has some miles yet to go. It could be pretty big time. Where are you at with New England? And do you feel like Detroit and Carolina do move out of where they're slotted at the 7 and 8? I mean, do you see some wheeling and dealing here once we get underway Thursday?
It'd be very uncharacteristic for Bill Belichick to move up. But if maybe one of them falls to 10 with the Dallas Cowboys, then with his relationship that he has with the Jones family, maybe that's a move that he might make to go from 5 to 10. 5 to 7 might be a little rich for his blood, but I still don't see him moving up because I remember that second tier of guys that I mentioned. Davis Mills is a West Coast progression type quarterback. You know, that would fit with what they do in New England. You know, I just don't see Belichick moving up. I don't. That's something he's never done. And one thing we're not remembering when it comes to the Patriots is they had 8 opt-outs off a defense that only gave up 17-plus points a game going back 2 years ago. Dante Hightower and those guys are all coming back this year. So it's almost like you're getting a bunch of draft picks just from the opt-outs from COVID from the previous season. So when you're getting guys like Dante Hightower back, not just on the field but in that room, that's almost a big. That's not almost. It is a massive bonus coming into not just this draft but the upcoming season.
Ian Fitzsimmons with us, a few more minutes previewing the NFL draft. He's got that covered for you on ESPN Radio. And Ian, a thought here on some of the skill guys. We mentioned Pitts, and as good as advertised with all his hype leading into kind of a short and weird COVID season, but Pitts was incredible. Let's spend some time on the Bama wideouts with Devontae Smith and Waddell. And you're a guy that knows the Bama program very well. And if you're picking here out of Smith, out of Waddle, out of Chase, who are you drafting?
I'd go Jamar Chase, and people have forgotten how dominant he was with Joe Burrow going back to that championship season. 7 of the teams they beat, going 15-0, were ranked in the top 10 at the time they played them, and none of those games were really close. I mean, they were just absolutely dominant. And Jamar Chase was the best wide receiver in all of college football, and the best team in college football that played the toughest schedule in college football. And talking to some LSU coaches about 2 weeks ago, one of them told me that Jamar Chase made a remarkable jump when it came, talking about his maturity level from 2018 to 2019. And that was a direct correlation to him becoming the best wide receiver in college football. Coach O told me he's one of his favorite players he's ever coached. And because of how much he just got it. He finally clicked. And he didn't want to ever lose another rep again, much less anything on or off the field. Jamar Chase, to me, is the best pure wide receiver in this draft, followed by Waddle and Devontae Smith, and it's close between those two. But it's a deep wideout draft. Again, for the third straight year, we're saying one of the deepest positions in this draft is wide receiver. You're going to get a great one in like an Elijah Moore, maybe in the second round out of Ole Miss, or Rondale Moore, who I think is going to be a star in this league out of Purdue. I talked to him last week, and I said, hey, you willing to return kicks and punts also at the next level? He goes, willing? I'll do it tomorrow, and I'm going to make a highlight reel. I promise you. I mean, this man is fearless. So when it comes to wideouts, it's another very deep draft, and somebody's going to get some steals, and a guy like Moore, or the Moore, and Elijah and Rondale, possibly in the second round.
You know, Rondale was in Lincoln a couple of years ago and finished with a good day, but he didn't go Ohio State off on Nebraska, and Big Ten fans won't ever forget that night in West Lafayette where Purdue looked unbeatable, and Moore was the catalyst. He was incredible. Ian Fitzsimmons with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Ian, is there a player that is scary, incredible on the field, but folks are moving away from because of some off-field questions? Has that come on your radar at all?
Man, I wouldn't say off-field, but Christian Barmore, the defensive tackle out of Alabama, he has a mean streak in him that is second to none, to the part where some teams have actually put him in the box. And what I mean by put him in the box, that they're saying, you know what, you just don't draft him. He's wired tight. He's a see-ball, get-ball, 320-pound, just wrecking machine. But he would fight anyone in his own locker room if you dropped a towel near his locker or whatever. I mean, he was just an angry, angry human being. His fellow defensive linemen loved him for it. a lot of his other teammates were like, dude, would you relax? We're wearing the same uni here. I mean, he's got a true mean streak and edge. And one coach told me and described him as being wired tight. So if there's a guy that, a lot of teams have a first-round grade on, but you might see him fall a bit, it's probably Christian Barmore, to answer your question, the defensive lineman out of Alabama.
Micah Parsons, do you think he slides to the teams? Is he snatched up by Denver? He's a guy that also opted out, but just phenomenal talent from Penn State.
Yeah, the one thing about Parsons for me is that I want to see him be more physical. He's such a remarkable athlete. He was able to slide around a pulling guard and avoid contact and make a play. Man, at some point, in the NFL, you got to meet contact. You can't avoid contact. You got to go to it. And that's one thing I want to see from Parsons. And I think that's one thing that NFL teams, if there's a question mark about him, it's that aspect. Is he willing to take on that pulling guard to free up a teammate, right? I mean, because, every now and then you have to do that. You have to go to contact in order to make a play. And that's something because he's so athletic, he hasn't had to do that often at the collegiate level at Penn State.
I'm going to go back to quarterback. Sorry to backtrack, but what question do you have on Fields? What question mark do you have on Trey Lance?
I don't have a single question mark about either one of those guys.
Okay.
Not one. And I talked to one NFL GM yesterday going, man, why is Fields sliding? He goes, well, which draft boards is he sliding on? Mock drafts? And he said, this is one team that doesn't need a quarterback, but they evaluate anyway for due diligence. He's a number 2 rated quarterback on our board. We haven't moved him. I don't know what board you're talking about. Have you seen an NFL team scout, big board? I went, no. He goes, well, there you go. It's a pretty damn good answer, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you really think about it.
Ian, a quick thought on Nebraska football. I know you spend a lot of time covering college football, and this Saturday's Nebraska's spring game, year 4 on the horizon for Scott Frost in Nebraska. A lot of guys back using that 6th year of eligibility, so the defense could be pretty good. Waiting for Adrian Martinez to stay healthy, but
yep, there you go.
He looks really good this spring, and things should shake out better on the offensive line. What's your take here on Nebraska as you look at them with a national eye?
Chris, there are certain teams when they're good in college football, the game is better. Nebraska is one of those teams. I want the U back at Miami. I want to be screaming "Go Big Red." I mean, college football is better when Nebraska is not good, great. And I'm based in Dallas, Texas, and when they made that move, leaving the Big 12 because of that stupid Longhorn Network and Daddy the Lost Dodds down in Texas, I thought it kind of cut off some recruiting as well. They are not a natural fit in the Big Ten. I wish they were still in the Big 12, but that's not going to happen. It's revisionist history. I'm praying for the day where I'm calling games like Nebraska and Texas again in a Big 12 championship game where did a ball hit a railing or didn't hit a railing, right? When Ndamukong Suh should have won, and should have finished at worst second and then Heisman Trophy balloting. College football is better when teams like Nebraska are not good but great. And I think this year could be a big step for Coach Frost and the Huskers because I'm a Scott Frost guy. Patience is hard in this day and age of social media. Give that man time.
Ian, a dive bar in Nebraska or a barbecue joint in the region, have you partaken in either?
Look, I'm calling you, Bubba, because guess what? I don't have that one for you. But I'm all in, man, because you give me a good dive bar and a barbecue joint with a lean-to, and I'm in. Those are my people. Let's go.
All right, I got you. It's one that Devaney used to hit many, many, many years ago. So
now we're talking. Let's talk some ghosts while we're in there. Let's get it. I'm all about it.
Ian, best to you. Thanks for the time today.
My pleasure, my man. Be well. Enjoy it.
Ian Fitzsimmons talking NFL draft, some Husker football. We one of those places that you love to cozy into a booth. We've got an update. Familiar spot after a late night to tell you about. Your chance also at the ESPN Memorial Day kickoff, a grill, a gift card to your friends at Campbell's Nurseries, and a gift card to Leon's Gourmet. That Sounder coming up. And thoughts on the running game Saturday. It's all on the way with Hail Varsity.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Okay, how many spring games or Husker Saturdays did you tie one on or just stay out way too late and end up at the Highway Diner? Or it might have been just a Saturday. It didn't have to involve Husker football. Man, I tell you what, my roommates in college, when we kind of moved off campus, we were strategic with where we rented and how close we were to the diner. I could waddle to and from and get the big diner or the hot stripper. It was wonderful. A tip of the cap to the Highway Diner, as after a 34-year run of being open 24 hours, they are now re-examining their hours. They're still open. God love them. But they have made an adjustment. Moment of silence. No more 3 a.m. biscuits and gravy and hash browns.
Got a text in from Will Wilson. He said he thought you were talking about the drunk tank, not Highway Diner.
No, dude. never visited that, you mullet-wearing Spartan. No, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Those are the new hours. Listen, they don't advertise with this. They don't spend money with it. It's okay. We've all had an experience or several at the diner, and it's been memorable. Yeah, one way or the other.
I feel bad for the youth of Lincoln that don't get to experience a hot stripper at 2 a.m. anymore. Well, they have to experience a different hot stripper at 2 a.m.
Right.
But yeah.
No, exactly. Exactly.
And then that's part of that's my upbringing. That's my youth.
It's wonderful. Well, and we pulled it off probably 10, 11 years ago with my neighbor Jolster, and his wife called the cops because she thought he was missing. She was worried. His phone had died, and I really wasn't answering mine. Just, plausible. My phone died, dear. If my wife was trying to get a hold of me, she didn't care. But yeah, we rocked the diner at like 3 a.m. Two old guys at the diner sitting down and just annihilating biscuits and gravy. There's the one guy, though, that is touring the eatery area. And once in a while, somebody grab a bite off your plate because they've had too much.
That biscuit sure looks good, man.
Yeah, you gonna eat that? Well, I just sat down. Do you want some hot sauce with that? It's we can still do it, right?
You just can't do it at midnight,
or 2 a.m.
I swear, it just their food just tasted better at 1 a.m. I can't explain why.
Dude, Carson swears by it. He's like, Dad, take me to the diner, biscuits and gravy. All right, good boy. Now, Nitro, my college buddy, he's like, Schmidt, you're gonna actually finally lose that 15 pounds. So we had to spend a moment on the diner. God love it. And I am team big diner over the hot stripper. I go with the big diner over the hot stripper.
See, to me, it depends on the time of day. If it's like between the hour, if it's like daytime hours, normal going in there hours, I'm hitting the big diner. If it's like one of those 2 a.m. trips, then I'm hitting the hot stripper. So I'm not sure if I'm ever going to hit a hot stripper ever.
Have you ever done the big diner and the hot stripper?
I've never been that hungry, no.
Oh, brother.
Even back in my high school days.
Oh, I didn't eat for 3 days, but it was wonderful. All right, let's get into some Nebraska thoughts here. The running game. We also spent time on Bill Moose, his comments last night. 8 to 9 wins, realistic in year 4. Are you buying that as a Nebraska fan? You can hope for that, and that'd be awesome. But is it a situation where the schedule's too tough? And listen, if we talk about the 8 or 9 win tally for next season, with what you have back on defense, with what you think you have on the offensive line, with what you have at wideout, with what you have at quarterback, it's going to depend on the running game. It's going to depend on health. But what's your biggest concern about getting to said 8 or 9 wins? Is it Nebraska's talent in comparison to the schedule? Is it Nebraska's coaching staff when you see who they line up against across the field? Or is it kind of what we touched on with Mike Babcock? Is it the controllables, the fumbles, the turnovers, same thing, and then special teams, penalties, missteps? I think they've got to be better at penalties and turnovers. You can work on that. It's concentration, legit. They can not be horrific at taking care of the football and making plays on special teams and kicking the ball. Okay, they will be better. They have to be better because it's been an ongoing issue that's cost you 2 games a year. I think from a talent standpoint, are they more talented with their starting 22 or give me some depth than a Purdue, than a Northwestern, than a Minnesota, than an Iowa, than a Wisconsin? In some instances, yeah, they are. Where they have failed has been some of the game management coaching. That's been it. It's been the coaching because they're not out talented. And they got to take a step forward and be better from a head coach and a coaching staff. And I think I'm anxious to see Lubick because he's calling the plays. Have more input from Lubick. It's not that Scott Frost is a bad play caller. Hell no. He's climbed the ladder doing it. But another voice and a voice that's pretty well respected in Lubick can help. 2 heads, right? And then listen to Greg Austin. Let his guys be physical. Win the physicality game. John's with us on Hail Varsity. John, go ahead.
You know, one thing, Smitty, that's got to get better next year if we're going to win 8, 9, 10 games is the horrendous Big Ten officiating.
Okay, they need to eat a lot of carrots. I will agree with you on that. But at some point, you got to quit dropping the football or giving up a 3rd and 8 sack that turns into a strip sack, and there's your drive.
I agree, and I don't think we've had a lot of room for error.
None.
It magnifies those kind of things, but it was week after week where you could count out 3, 4, 5 just baloney calls that went against us that helped turn the game around. And I hope I don't have to watch that next year.
Some of the calls absolutely sucked. Nebraska, though, has not made their own breaks either. I mean,
yep,
I don't disagree that there's been some. And you can go Big Ten officiating conspiracy. John, thanks for the call. But every game's not 2010 A&M, right? It's not one last middle finger by the Big 12. Nebraska's culpable in some of their own missteps. I agree, disagree on that. I mean, I don't know how many of you go first and foremost blame the officials as to why Nebraska's not getting bowl eligible. They've not helped, but it's a two-way street to me between Nebraska, the officials, and Nebraska being better. And John's right. A holding play or a holding call blows up a drive. So does an interception in the red zone. So does not being able to run the football or wanting to run the football in the red zone with a running back or leaning on your quarterback to run 4,000 times in the first half. The Illinois situation, Nebraska, if they don't get out and get a lead, they struggle. And that's part of getting better as a head coach is everyone wants to jump out with the lead or get a 3 and out and get the football, right? Get the lead, go 1,000 miles per hour, keep pouring it on. You did that in your previous conference. Hard as heck to do it in this conference.
I mean, the Husker baseball team, what have we been saying? Gritty, not pretty? When was the last time you saw a gritty, not pretty Husker win? I mean,
Michigan State in the snow.
Yeah. Yeah, you could make somewhat of an argument for the Rutgers game this past year, but even then,
no,
that wasn't that gritty or pretty.
It's impossible to win a football game when you hand it to them 4 times. That's how much better Nebraska was than Rutgers talent-wise. And from a turnover standpoint, now Nebraska got a couple back in the second half. Let's hear from Coach Held. And he was all over Rocky IV today. And here is Coach Ryan Held here on his running backs.
Well, the high level of training, the high level of eating, the watching film on your own, going out on your own and doing drills when no one else is around and everybody else wants to go to the lake and get on a boat, that you decide that, you know what, I'm going to go out here and run routes. I'm going to work on my pass pro technique. I'm going to work on my footwork. That's what it's going to take. And, that's something our guys, I think, will do. But I'll challenge them because, what they do when no one else is looking is going to determine what happens out on this field.
So the true question is, how many folks go to Russia to train in Siberia like Sylvester did in Rocky IV, willingly going to Russia to fight Drago?
I think it's a little different now than whenever that movie was created.
Every 80s flick had a montage.
I mean, that
music and working out.
I think it would have been worse.
And Kenny Loggins probably wrote it and sang it.
But it's like it's Soviet Union as compared to Russia now. I mean, there's comparisons you can make, but it's probably a better place up there. And I haven't been to Russia.
Yeah, instead of Boris, you got Putin.
Ooh, I mean.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get too political on the show.
That's fine. More from Held. He kind of goes roll call here on the running backs, and he's confident in the spring that they've had, despite some missed practices. Part of that's because of the physicality. Guys got to be able to work through that, and then there's also a situation where there's some running backs that just, honestly, you want them good for Saturday. They're going to need a pitch count Monday through Friday.
I'll just go down the line. I mean, Gabe is coming here as a freshman, and he should still be in high school and has really improved. Marvin Scott has really good talent. I just need him to be more consistent, but when he does what he's supposed to do, he's really, really good. Xavion Morrison's a guy that's, been tough for me because he's just been, different things have happened to him, but he's got as good a vision as we have, maybe the best vision of the running backs. He's a good football player. Ronald Tompkins, got to get him ramped back up. He does a lot of good things. Ramir's been out. Marquise Stepp obviously will be back in the fall.
So how about the Yantinator? Do we have time for that? Do we have time for Yant? We have an update on Yant and some of the other backs.
Jaquez Yant, the Yantinator, has done a really good job. He's 245 pounds as a walk-on, and really, I mean, when he gets that thing downhill, it's rolling. And then you got Jewett, and Winemaster has done some really good things, and then Isaiah Harris has done some really good things. We got a lot of competition. I'm excited, probably more than anybody. Obviously, it's my room, but we're just going to keep grinding. But I think everybody has improved, so you can't speed up time. At the end of the day, you just can't do it.
Got to keep working them. We'll see how they look on Saturday.
He's in his 30s, but sounds like he was born with a stogie in one hand and a brew in the other.
Now, say my name.
It's Schmitty on Hail Varsity Radio.
I got the body of a taut, preteen Swedish boy.
Back into it, Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Time for a Jock Doc Wednesday. Lincoln Orthopedic Center, Dr. Ben Woodhead with us. Dr. Ben, getting ready for some NFL and some college this weekend. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. I know it's exciting times, right?
It is. Good weather and butts in the seats, and you got a full draft party going on in Cleveland, so should be pretty awesome. We talk a lot about knee issues and knee injuries when we do Jock Docs, but you've got situations where guys can go down and through no fault of their own, and I want to focus on kind of the non-contact knee injury, Dr. Ben, and a couple of different ways to go with that when it comes to getting hurt, non-contact wise, and a couple of culprits that are pretty common here between the ACL and the meniscus, correct?
Correct, yeah. Both of these can be a non-contact injury. Oftentimes you think that it's more of a contact injury, but it's actually not all the time. And that's kind of the scary part, is you can just twist your leg wrong and, you can tear both your meniscus and or your ACL.
Dr. Ben Woodhead's with us as we're doing a Jock Doc Wednesday, Lincoln Orthopedic Center, ACL injuries. And are there, and I hate to kind of pigeonhole body types, but are there certain body types that are more prone to ACL injury, more position groups more prone to ACL injuries?
Not necessarily. If you start talking about BMI, that certainly could maybe have an effect, but not a lot of studies actually show that. There's actually some more anatomic variants, that you actually don't see in an individual, whether that's, where the location where the ACL is, what's called the notch. Sometimes that can be smaller. in certain athletes, and that places people at an increased risk of tearing, or if just their ACL is naturally a little smaller than other folks, that's another reason. Other conditions, prior knee injuries, certainly can place them at risk, but also it can just be a freak accident as well, where you cut and you pivot just correctly, and the ACL will tear.
When it comes to some pre-existing conditions, is there a lot of linkage between tendonitis and tearing your ACL?
Not necessarily, but where you can run into issues is, say, whether your hamstrings are not, hamstrings or your quads are not strong, and maybe it weakens the natural kind of muscles around the knee, and so it can place you at an increased risk. That's why when folks have some tendinitises, or maybe they're not 100%, you're certainly more prone to injuries just because your body's not functioning correctly.
Dr. Ben Woodhead's with us, Lincoln Orthopedic Center at Jock Doc Wednesday. We're talking non-contact knee injuries, ACL and meniscus. So when you make that pivot or cut and it goes wrong, you tear your ACL, touch on just where advancements have gone, not only in your side of things, the surgical procedure, but also just the recovery. And I always kind of think Adrian Peterson, right? Like Superback running for $2,000 after having a horrific knee issue.
Absolutely. So, back in the day, how they used to fix a big open incision, kind of like the traditional knee replacement type of incision that a lot of people recognize so quickly. But nowadays, we do it through poke holes, through a scope. You're going to have a little bigger incision depending on the type of tissue that you use for the actual graft to reconstruct it. I'm sure a lot of people have heard back in the day, you can either use your tendons in the front of the knee by the kneecap, or you can use your hamstrings. And so that's where the small or the little larger incisions are. But, the rehab for these, it's a lot better than what it used to be. There's new modalities that can help strengthen the quads after. The unfortunate thing, though, is no matter how you do it, and even with the advances in techniques, you're still kind of relying on the old-fashioned tricks of the body to heal, and there's not a great way to speed that up. Even if you feel better, and that's kind of the danger in surgery these days, is that we have new, more minimally invasive techniques that you have less pain after surgery, but that's not sometimes that can be a false sense of security, because you feel like you're better than you truly are until the healing actually takes place.
Dr. Ben, when it comes to the rehab, how do you go about getting back to normal after an ACL, the rehab process itself? I mean, what are some of the steps that you take, obviously with caution, but how do you go about it the right way?
Yeah, usually most surgeons will actually have a protocol that is very similar to kind of across the board, where you're protecting the reconstruction or the repair in those first 6 weeks. A lot of patients will actually be in a brace, and so you're limiting your motion, but at the same time you're going to therapy and working on the motion while that kind of repair heals. And so that's the most important thing in the first 6 to 8 weeks. And then from there on out, you're working on your motion and slowly getting your quad strength back. And it's really not about necessarily hurrying the process. You're really waiting on the body's healing capacity.
Dr. Ben Woodhead's with us, Lincoln Orthopedic Center at Jock Doc Wednesday. We're talking ACL injuries. And Dr. Ben, what is it about the recovery here, or today's athlete, where a lot of times you'd have an ACL, and we're talking years and years ago, it could be career ending, and sometimes guys come back new and improved after the surgery. Why do you think that is?
I think it is with the techniques that we're actually reconstructing the ACL, and it's also with the rehab. What we know is as they get stronger and you're really focusing on that extremity, a lot of these athletes, they don't come back until they're 100%, and a lot of times they truly did focus on rehabbing that on that knee, and they are coming back stronger than ever. And a lot of it is just the modalities that therapists have these days to help get these athletes back.
Let's talk about the mental hurdle. It's one thing to get the reconstruction, the rehab, and you're feeling great, you're out there running, but that is also a hurdle to overcome, not only trusting what's been fixed, but also worrying about future injury. That's something that athletes have in the back of their mind often, isn't it?
Absolutely. And if you've ever talked to anybody or you've had one of these injuries yourself, and especially if it's one of these non-contact type injuries, it can happen to anybody. It can happen walking down the stairs. It can happen if you're just running and jogging and cutting and twisting. And so I think that's the hardest part to get over, is that, sometimes it can be that perfect storm. And when is that storm going to happen? Obviously, an athlete's going to be at a higher risk because they're cutting and pivoting and doing activities that the normal population isn't, so it places them at a higher risk. And I think at some point these athletes either just have to make a decision or not, that they're going to go 100% and not worry about the potential complications that could happen.
Are there instances as well where just because of the nature, or maybe there's more collateral damage than just the ACL, where guys do come back, but they may be a step slower, either north-south, downhill, or laterally?
It certainly can happen. When you have an ACL injury, there's other types of injuries that can happen with it, whether you tear your meniscus, whether you get injury to the cartilage. Those certainly can have an effect on your recovery, and that's something that you don't know in a lot of these athletes until the time of surgery. And then, it can even get more complex than that, because, sometimes you got to actually take the meniscus out. Sometimes you can actually repair it and let the body heal it. And so if that's the case, it can certainly delay the rehab as well.
Dr. Ben Woodhead. Dr. Ben, thanks for the time today.
Absolutely, Chris. Thanks a lot.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at HailVarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Quick reminder, weekend edition, Hail Varsity Radio, a special spring game, pre-spring game time, 10 to noon in the rail yard. Come say hi to us. Throw things at me or Cranack, not really, but come get a cool ESPN koozie, and we'll be down there, ready to rock from 10 to noon before the 1 o'clock kick. So Hail Varsity weekend on the road, 10 to noon in the rail yard for a sun-splashed Saturday ahead of spring football. Reminder about moving, West Blue Realty makes it happen for you. Getting homes real tough right now. Selling homes, hey, they can get that dollar for you when it comes to West Blue Realty. The surrounding communities and Lincoln, of course, westbluerealty.com is where you log on. Give a phone call today to Tom Luby or Kelly Hofschneider. They'll make that next move real easy for you. Tom Luby's number at 402-540-3768. Kelly Hofschneider. Give Kelly a call at 402-202-2312. Pays to work with West Blue. And you mentioned Hail Varsity, they can provide you up to $1,000 on the closing of your next home purchase. 1120 K Street, Suite 200. Awesome stuff today from Ian Fitzsimmons, draft insider, college football analyst with ESPN. Mike Babcock killed it. And, of course, Mike Schuhart, Shuey, talking some Kate Smith with us and some Husker football. And we will do it again tomorrow. Trey Wingo, longtime host of NFL Tonight on ESPN, has done a billion NFL drafts. He's doing work for Fox and some of their social media channels. They're doing kind of a draft party. So Trey Wingo with us tomorrow. Brandon Vogel, Vogues from Hail Varsity. Danny Burke will be with us. Gary Barnett. Barney will talk some ball with us. It is that time, again, to qualify for the ESPN Memorial Day kickoff. That is meat on a grill, what you're hearing. What you're qualifying for right now, caller 9-466-377-6800, 825-5865. The Weber Spirit E210 Gas Grill. It's a grill. You'll love it. And it's from your friends at Capitol Patio and the Flame Shop. A $100 gift card to Campbell's Nursery and Garden Centers. And a $100 gift card to Leon's Gourmet Grocers. Some meat for that grill. And something to spruce up the backyard from Campbell's. Caller 9 qualifies now for the ESPN Memorial Day kickoff. Caller 9, you qualify now for that trifecta. We will draw May 20th for you. And can get in at 800-825 5865 or 466-3776. Qualify now. Can also log on ESPNLincoln.com. I love doing this, man. Summer's around the corner. Mother's/Father's Day around the corner. And how good would that be to get yourself a grill, a gift card from Campbell's, and a gift card from Leon's? I would take $100 worth of meat from Leon's. That'd be awesome. I will not help you put the grill together. That's all on you. It totally is. So we'll be back at it tomorrow, 4 o'clock. Find the podcast. Get involved with the podcast. Give us a rating. Love us, hate us, critique us, do so. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Hail Varsity Radio Podcast. Talk to you tomorrow.